The year is 2025. America stands at a precipice, gazing into a fractured mirror reflecting a deeply divided self. The promise of unity, once a cornerstone of the national identity, now feels like a distant, almost forgotten dream. Instead, the landscape is marked by deep fissures, chasms that have grown wider and more treacherous with each passing year. We are a nation of neighbors who no longer speak the same language, even when using the same words. The air is thick with suspicion, and the common ground upon which a republic must stand has eroded, seemingly beyond immediate repair. This is not a sudden affliction, but the culmination of years, even decades, of growing apart, of whispered grievances turning into shouted accusations across unbridgeable divides. The divisions are not merely political, they are profoundly cultural, touching every aspect of American life. They dictate where we live, what news we consume, who we trust, and even how we perceive basic facts. The once celebrated melting pot now seems more like a collection of separate, simmering pots, each with its own distinct and often conflicting ingredients. The vibrant tapestry of American society, woven with diverse threads, shows signs of unraveling, its colors clashing rather than complementing. The very soul of America hangs in the balance, caught between the echoes of a more united past and the cacophony of a deeply fractured present. The political landscape of 2025 is a battlefield of entrenched positions. The two major parties, once broad coalitions, have become bastions of ideological purity, their platforms diverging to almost irreconcilable extremes. Meaningful dialogue across the aisle is a relic of a bygone era. Legislative gridlock is the norm. Elections are no longer contests of ideas but zero-sum struggles for power, fueling animosity and distrust. Voters are sorted into echo chambers, their beliefs constantly reinforced and their skepticism of the other side amplified. This polarization is not just a Washington phenomenon, it permeates state legislatures, city councils, and even school boards, turning every civic space into a potential conflict zone. The political center where compromise was once forged has all but disappeared. Culturally, America is experiencing a similar cleavage. What one segment of the population cherishes as tradition, another decries as oppression. Debates over history, identity, and values are not constructive conversations but bitter confrontations. Even shared national holidays can become points of contention, their meanings contested and their celebrations segregated. The entertainment we consume, the books we read, and the art we appreciate often fall along these predetermined fault lines, further deepening the sense of separation. This cultural balkanization makes the task of finding common purpose incredibly challenging, if not impossible. The foundations of American democracy rest on public trust in its core institutions. By 2025, that trust has crumbled to an alarming degree. Congress, the body meant to represent the will of the people, is widely viewed with cynicism and disdain. Its members are often seen as beholden to special interests or partisan agendas rather than the common good. The legislative process itself appears broken, mired in perpetual conflict and incapable of addressing the nation's most pressing challenges. Approval ratings for Congress have languished at historic lows for years, a clear indictment of its perceived ineffectiveness and detachment from the everyday concerns of citizens. The media, once a trusted arbiter of truth and a vital check on power, also faces a severe crisis of confidence. The proliferation of partisan news outlets and the relentless spread of misinformation have left many Americans unsure of what or whom to believe. Traditional journalism, with its commitment to objectivity, struggles to be heard above the din of opinion and propaganda. Many citizens retreat into information silos, consuming only media that confirms their existing biases, further entrenching divisions. As trust in mainstream institutions has withered, more Americans have turned towards the fringes, seeking answers and a sense of belonging in extremist ideologies. By 2025, various forms of extremism, both on the right and the left, have become more visible and, alarmingly, more normalized in certain circles. These groups often thrive on a narrative of grievance and persecution. portraying themselves as righteous warriors fighting against a corrupt and irredeemable system. They offer simplistic solutions to complex problems and identify clear enemies, channeling the anger and frustration that simmers beneath the surface of a divided society. The rhetoric is often inflammatory, dehumanizing opponents and justifying actions that would have once been considered beyond the pale. The rise of armed militias and politically motivated vigilante groups is a particularly concerning manifestation of this trend. These organizations, often fueled by conspiracy theories and a deep-seated fear of government overreach or societal collapse, represent a direct challenge to the state's monopoly on legitimate force. Section 5. Shattered Screens, the Misinformation Maze. The information ecosystem of 2025 is a bewildering labyrinth where truth, half-truth, and outright falsehoods intermingle with alarming ease. Social media platforms, once hailed as tools for democratic empowerment, have become primary conduits for the rapid spread of misinformation and disinformation. Algorithms designed to maximize engagement often inadvertently amplify sensational, divisive, and misleading content, creating filter bubbles that reinforce pre-existing biases and shield users from dissenting viewpoints. The sheer volume of information, much of it unvetted, overwhelms individuals, making it difficult to discern credible sources from malicious actors. This constant barrage leaves many feeling confused, cynical, and distrustful of any information they encounter. The advent of sophisticated AI-generated content, including deepfakes and fabricated news articles, has added another layer of complexity and deception to this already broken system. Section 6. The Widening Gyre. Economic Anxieties Fueling the Fire. Economic anxieties in 2025 are not merely statistics, they are the daily lived reality for a vast number of Americans, acting as a powerful accelerant to the nation's divisions. The perception of an unfair economic system, one that disproportionately benefits the wealthy and powerful, is widespread. An Ipsos poll from January 2024 found that 68% of Americans felt the economic system unfairly favors the wealthy. This sentiment breeds resentment and erodes faith in the promise of upward mobility. When people feel that the deck is stacked against them, that hard work no longer guarantees a secure future, their frustration can easily curdle into anger, making them more receptive to populist and extremist narratives that promise radical change. Concerns about inflation and the rising cost of living have become particularly acute. Data from YouGov in March 2025 showed that 58% of Americans reported being more concerned about inflation than they were at the end of 2024. This worry translates into tangible changes in behavior, with 43% planning to cut back on non-essential items and 40% expecting to spend more on essentials, primarily due to rising prices. Section 7. If Tomorrow Never Comes, a Nation on the Brink. Imagining a future where America's current divisions continue unchecked is a sobering exercise. The trajectory points towards a nation increasingly ungovernable, where political paralysis becomes permanent. Federal authority could weaken, with states adopting radically different legal and social frameworks, leading to a de facto internal balkanization. Trust between citizens and their government, already at historic lows, could evaporate entirely, leading to widespread civil disobedience or, in the worst-case scenarios, localized outbreaks of political violence. The very fabric of the Union, once thought unbreakable, would be tested as never before. The idea of a united nation might become a historical artifact rather than a lived reality. Economically, persistent internal conflict would be devastating. Investment would dry up, businesses would struggle to navigate a patchwork of conflicting regulations, and international partners would lose confidence in American stability. The social safety net, already frayed, could collapse under the strain of political infighting and economic decline. The American dream, the promise that each generation can do better than the last, would become an impossibility for millions. Instead, a cycle of decline and disillusionment would set in, further fueling anger and resentment. Section 8. Whispers of Unity, Grassroots Resilience. Yet, even amidst the gloom of 2025, flickers of hope persist, often found far from the rancorous halls of power, in the quiet efforts of ordinary citizens. Across the country, grassroots initiatives are emerging, driven by individuals and communities determined to bridge the divides that threaten to tear the nation apart. These efforts are diverse and localized, ranging from community dialogues aimed at fostering understanding between different political groups, to interfaith collaborations tackling local problems, to neighborhood projects that bring people together around shared practical goals. They operate on the simple premise that shared humanity can transcend ideological differences if given the chance. These movements often begin small, with a few courageous individuals willing to step outside their comfort zones and engage with those they have been taught to distrust. They focus on active listening, empathy, and finding common ground, however narrow it may initially seem. Section 9. The Crossroads, Our Collective Choice. As we stand in the late spring of 2025, America is undeniably at a crossroads. The path of continued division, fueled by distrust and extremism, leads towards a future that few would consciously choose, one of instability, decline, and deepening social fractures. The warning signs are clear, and the potential consequences as explored are dire. To ignore them would be an abdication of our collective responsibility as citizens. The comfortable illusion that things will simply sort themselves out, that the nation's inherent resilience will automatically prevail, is a dangerous complacency in the face of such profound internal challenges. The trajectory is not set in stone, but altering it requires deliberate, sustained effort. The alternative path, one of healing and reconciliation, is more arduous, but ultimately more rewarding. It demands courage, the courage to listen to those with whom we disagree, to question our own biases, and to step out of our ideological echo chambers. It requires a renewed commitment to the foundational principles of democracy, respect for differing viewpoints, a belief in objective truth, and a willingness to compromise for the common good.